Good morning. I am Matteo Ritrovato. I'm the head of HTA unit at Bambino Gesù Children's Hospital in Rome. This work was carried out by the HTA team of Bambino Gesù Children's Hospital in collaboration with the University of Warwick. As you probably know, real-world data is becoming an important part of medical devices health technology assessment. However, the accessibility to medical devices clinical effectiveness information represents one of the main problems in HTA, especially in the evaluation of real health impact in hospital context, because it refers to the measurement of effects in real world rather than under the conditions of experimentation required for the unbiased measurement of efficacy in randomized controlled trials. Real-world data are indeed relevant at hospital level, for they can substitute outcome measures from RCT. They may lead to a more specific and precise economic analysis, and they may support the evaluation of the impact on patient pathway. Notwithstanding, randomized controlled trials are still considered the gold standard to retrieve information about clinical efficacy of medical devices. Results may not resemble those in real world. Several differences emerge between RCTs and real-world data-based studies. Factors that cause this gap include variation in practice settings, decision makers, patient compliance, and simultaneous treatments and conditions, all aspects that are minimized in RCTs because they are considered a source of noise. However, some of the limitations that are intrinsic in different kinds of real-world data might be overcome if we consider hospital data. As you can see from this figure, hospital data might be considered a middle ground between RCTs that are performed under controlled conditions and surveys, different electronic health records, insurance data, both in terms of number of data, that is the number of patients treated, quality of data, and interoperability. For instance, considering electronic health record, the lack of interoperability, that is considered one of the main disadvantages of electronic health record data collection. It is usually overcome when considering data from a single health institution. Data from EHR could be easily integrated with other healthcare data and other important variables within the same hospital. Usually, thanks to content management system or similar systems that provide a secure repository through which it could be possible to manage different kinds of data, improving their accessibility and interoperability. The entire clinical history of patients is accessible and traceable, and it is associated to administrative data, admissions, length of stay, and so on, and related costs. There are several examples in literature on the use of different kinds of real-world data in clinical practice. However, these studies approach the problem considering single real-world data sources. Yet we are proposing a new approach to integrate throughout multi-criteria decision analysis, different kinds of hospital real-world data to obtain robust results and sound advices about the introduction of a new technology in an hospital setting. In the past, we have developed a method for conducting HTA process called decision-oriented HTA that integrates UNITA core model and analytic hierarchy process. The method leads to the definition of a decision tree in which the final elements, called key performance indicators, have to be measured in some way in order to compute a performance score for each alternative technology evaluated. Some of the techniques for measuring each KPI rely on the use of real-world data, typically gathered in hospital databases, public registry, scientific literature, and others, depending on the specific KPI. Most of these data are usually affected by data quality issues or by quality of evidence issues. That's why it is important to distinguish these two concepts. Statistical significance implies that the difference in the sample also exists in the population. In other words, the results are not randomly due to the selection of samples. Clinical significance implies that the difference between treatment and effectiveness is clinically important. In HHP, that is part of the do-HTA method, this implies that a poor clinical significance corresponds an equal performance among the alternatives whereas to a very high clinical significance is attributed a conspicuous difference in performance. Statistical significance helps us to understand the robustness of data. Each KPI is associated to a probability distribution function with a mean value that represents the performance score related to clinical significance and a standard deviation that is related to the quality of the evidence that support the measure of the KPI. The same approach about statistical significance can be drawn considering the quality of evidence by using the grade scale and the shown normal distribution. By doing so, KPIs are represented not only by a score, but by means of score probability distributions. Regarding the organizational and economic aspect, historical time series data are usually taken into account. Forecast analysis can be carried out providing short-term expected values and their confidence intervals with high accuracy, based on real-world data. From the forecast values and their CIs, normal distributions have been built per each criterion, with mean values as the expected performance values and standard deviations calculated from the CIs. At this point, per each KPI, a probability distribution is available, and a Monte Carlo simulation can be run in order to highlight the stability or the instability of the solution. Results of Monte Carlo simulation take into account the variability of data, reflecting the variability of hospital processes and the quality of how real-world data used for the analysis. Point clouds that appears perfectly distinguished, like those in the picture, reflect the stability of the solution, highlighting and confirming the robustness of the final rank. Whereas overlying point clouds means that the solution is not stable and that the two technologies have similar performance scores. We have provided an example of how to maximize usefulness of real-world data in hospital-based HTA. With this approach, decision makers can take into account errors and uncertainties of results, thus leading to a more comprehensive and aware decision-making process. Thank you for your attention.